Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Watch Dares TV. I'm back with another review, and this one is of The Handmaid's Tale, Season 5, Episode 2, Ballet. If you like this video, you already know, like, comment, subscribe, and share the video for all things Handmaid's Tale. I'll be doing a review of every episode of this season. So if you like that, share the video, like, comment, subscribe, all that. So let's start with this video, and let's start with this review. So basically, this episode starts with June and Serena. They basically showing flashbacks of their history from the first few seasons of the show, and basically the similar situations that they are in currently right now. They're both laying on bed. They're both in different places and stuff like that, and they both have different mindsets. June starts this episode with just basically wanting revenge. Serena is completely absorbed in just sorrow and stuff like that, and wanting to just bury her husband and things not going right for her. But, June has a scene where she buries the gun that she got from in the first episode of this season. I'm assuming that gun is gonna, well, I guess she was burying the gun as a way to basically show that, you know what, no, no, no. Okay, I thought she was probably burying the gun at first for showing that she wants to bury her need for revenge, but I forgot that she spent most of the episode wanting revenge, so I don't know. I'm assuming that gun is going to be a Chekhov's gun, that thing they use in storytelling, where basically this gun is going to become important in the future. We just don't know when. So she buries the gun, but we know that gun is going to be important in the future. I thought it was originally she was just going to bury the gun as a way for her to sort of, you know, bury the past. But of course, that's not what she's into doing. She definitely wants revenge. Lauren Lawrence and Nick basically have a scene where Serena comes back in town, and I think she comes back to Gilead, and Lawrence and Nick are just basically pretending like they are actually sad over Fred's death. They could definitely care less about his death, but they're saying that to sort of make Serena feel all comfortable and stuff like that. Serena knows more people had something to do with Fred's death. She feels Lawrence has something to do with Fred's death, but she really just wants to get a better funeral for Fred. The original funeral was going to be in some type of small chapel or something like that, but she's like, no, I want it to be more of a bigger place. We don't know why. We first thought that maybe she was doing that basically to, give him a real proper burial, but we end up finding out what the real reason for why she wants a big funeral for. I'll get to that at the end of this review. Aunt Lydia, she seems to have new recruits under her, and Esther basically still hates being there. My theory is that she will rebel and basically rebel against Lydia and kill Lydia. That's my theory as to what she might possibly do. Aunt Lydia wants Jenny to basically groom Esther for the Putnam family. That's basically going to do nothing but make things incredibly hard for Jenny, because now she's stuck in a position where she's going to have to basically kind of give up her friend, who's basically kind of once her enemy when they first met, but she has to give her up in order to, make things easier for herself. So that ends up causing a lot of weird tension, as we can see later on in this episode. Mr. Putnam, then there's a scene where I think they have maybe it was a wake. I'm not sure where they were at, but some sort of meeting basically that Serena was at. I guess to talk about the funeral that she wanted to have for Fred. And Mr. Putnam has a scene where he basically sort of like makes Mark sit down and eat. I guess that was basically his way of making him know his place. He's not a commander or anything like that, so he just basically is like, yeah, just sit down there and eat. I guess that's his way of belittling Mark. So, I guess his Mark is just nothing but a security guard, I guess. So that was his way of just belittling him. And, Lawrence tells Serena that Fred was looked at as a traitor, and she won't be able to have this big funeral that she wants for him. So that basically sort of really aggravates Serena. Rita makes her return. We see Rita finally for the first time this season. She makes her return, and they have game night. She has game night at June's house with Luke and Moira. June is having a little PTSD sort of flashback just from the game Scrabble. She's already beginning to think of stuff that she went through in Gilead. Luke knows something's going on with her, but she basically sort of keeps it a little bit more under wraps. Then June has a scene where she talks to Rita in the kitchen about basically wanting Serena to suffer the way that she made other people suffer. Rita and Moira are pretty much completely disturbed by everything that June is saying. June just basically wants revenge. They both want to move on, Rita and Moira, but and they basically sort of let June. Rita says that even though she wasn't a handmaid, she ended up still struggling. She still had to go through her own personal hell while in Gilead. And it seems like basically in this episode we see that June's need for revenge is starting to push people away. It's getting other people mad and stuff like that. So yeah, our Lydia and Serena, they have a weird little strange interaction at the funeral. I don't remember what happened in previous seasons for them to feel that way. If anybody remembers, comment on this video. But they have a weird interaction where Lydia claims that she feels sorry for Serena's loss, and I don't know. The whole interaction felt weird between the two. I don't really understand what was going on there. They just seemed like they were being fake with each other. And then let's get back to Esther. Esther has become, and I noticed in this episode also that Esther has become similar to Janie when she first started out earlier in the series. Sort of rebelling against the authority, and it seemed like Janie has sort of become like who June used to be, where she wants to just keep her in line. He's sort of becoming who helped them out when they first came to Gilead. So like I said, Esther is becoming kind of like how Janie used to be, and Janie is becoming what June used to be. It seemed like that's what they were going for in this episode. Mrs. Putnam, she ends up meeting Esther, and she seems to be completely disturbed by how young she is. That this girl is going to basically be with her husband and get pregnated. So she feels completely disturbed by that. She seems like one of the first few wives of a commander that seemed disturbed by this whole act. But Jenny sees Mrs. Putnam's child. Well, basically that's her child, I end up realizing, and she completely gets attached to the child. And basically, sort of Mrs. Putnam has to kind of pull Jenny away from getting too attached. Jenny almost has another episode like she had earlier in the series when she saw, I think she saw her child or saw a child, and she got attached, and everything completely just fell apart and went to crap. Mrs. Putnam ends up, she sort of comforts Janny, knowing that, yeah, I know I have your daughter, but, she's in good hands, basically. So that sort of makes Janny feel a bit better, I guess, even though she still misses her daughter and being a mom. Mrs. Putnam wants Aunt Lydia to basically leave Esther with him, and she's completely disturbed by that, but she has to oblige. He decides to basically sort of use God as a way to justify what he's about to do to her, which is completely sick. Then he ends up having a scene where he basically sort of like feeds her like a brownie, and he's sort of like toying with her about it by putting it in her mouth and stuff like that, and just doing putting this girl through utter hell after what she's already been through in the previous season when she was originally a wife to a commander. Now she's, I guess, got demoted, and now she's back to a handmaid, and just I don't know. I kind of yeah. So June tells Luke that Serena knows she killed Fred, and Luke doesn't like her vengefulness, and because it basically won't help them get Hannah, So Luke doesn't like that she's becoming so full of hate and wants revenge and stuff like that, because it's not going to help them get their daughter back at all. And Luke basically tells her to stay with him and her family and move on from Serena, who he claims, oh, Serena's probably afraid of you, which she most certainly is not. But, he just basically wants his wife to come back, I guess, and, not be so full of hate. So they have that scene. So it's basically sort of, for now, it seems like June sort of lets that go. Serena meets with Commander Calhoun to basically set up this international funeral. Putnam basically has a scene where he completely insults Lawrence about not having a wife or kids and stuff like that when he speaks. So that was kind of cruel of him doing him like that. But, then he ends up making a reference to, hey, my wife just died. So come on, So, yeah, they kind of did Lawrence a bit harsh in that scene. Nick supports Serena's funeral along with Lawrence. He's supporting it basically, which I think he doesn't even know what he's doing. But we're going to get into that later on. That, Nick supporting her want to do this funeral thing may not have been a good idea as to how it affects June later on in this episode, but yeah. Calhoun seems to put some thought into it. He's not sure if he's going to do it or not, so basically he sort of gets some time to think about it. I also noticed in this episode, it seemed like the handmaids no longer have white hats no more. It seems like all their hats are like black now, so I wonder, does that mean that the season has sort of took a more darker approach with what they're going to do with the handmaids? Because now they have they have dark hats now, so they're not no longer wearing white. Does that mean that things are getting darker now? Ever since um, Serena has taken over the position of sort of being not in charge of Gilead, but since Fred is dead and she's sort of taken over, everything's become darker. So does that mean that the handmaids' hats are becoming darker also? If anybody noticed that or has any opinion on that, comment on this video. Lawrence tells Serena that they agreed to the funeral, but the only reason they were able to agree to this international funeral because he's a man and he was able to talk to them into doing it. So, basically he's letting her know that her position, means nothing. So, yeah, sorry that had to happen to her. Mark asks Nick if he wants to see his daughter in Canada, and they seem like they have some type of mutual understanding. They're going to be working together in the future. I don't know if I could say Mark looked like he's playing both sides or anything like that, but he seemed like he really wants the best for Nick. So I get a strong feeling like Mark is definitely going to end up dying because he seemed like one of the few good people in Gilead. So yeah, he's definitely my theory right now is Mark is going to probably end up dying, or he's going to find out that maybe his team June and they might kill him off. But definitely for sure, I feel like Mark is definitely going to die. Serena and June both have another scene where there's sort of like a compare and contrast, where they're both getting dressed up. Serena is getting dressed up for her husband's funeral, and June is getting dressed up to go out with her husband. So it's like a compare and contrast type of thing. Serena is wearing more darker colors, of course, because she's going to a funeral, and June is wearing white colors, and so, like I said, compare and contrast. I liked how they did that in this episode. Jenny talks with Esther about the joys that she misses from motherhood, since Esther will, unfortunately be forced into becoming a mother soon, since she's a handmaid. Esther brings up how they didn't get along, and when they first met back in season 4 beginning, and they still aren't friends, which completely switches the mood. I thought they were going to have a scene where they're going to become cool with each other, and I don't know, just have girl talk, but it completely changes everything. Jenny, I believe, was just trying to do nothing but get Esther to use her life as a hand. Jenny was trying to get Esther to get used to her life as a handmaid, and Esther, I believe, took it the wrong way and claims that Jenny was just using her to see her daughter. And we end up finding out that Esther basically poisoned the brownies that she took from the party or the event or whatever that was, and they both end up coughing up blood and collapsing. I don't know if they're dead or anything like that. I'm not sure, but that whole scene really completely threw me off. The most surprising scene of this episode. I didn't know she was going to do that. I thought they were going to become cool. I didn't know Esther was going to basically turn back into Joffrey, female Joffrey from Game of Thrones, which is ironic because, spoiler alert, Joffrey died the same way in Game of Thrones from being poisoned. Unspoiler alert. So anyway, so let's get towards the end of this episode. Serena's mourning at her funeral for her husband June. I mean, not her husband June. What am I talking about? Serena is mourning at funeral for her husband, while June is basically. Did I say that right? While June is basically enjoying her day out with her husband. Everything is going great until basically June sees the funeral of her old commander Fred being broadcast. I think they're in New York, somewhere not in New York, they're in Canada, I believe. So yeah, they're basically it's been completely broadcast for her to see, and June and Luke's daughter is attending the funeral. This was all part of Serena's plan. That the only reason she wanted to have an international funeral is, of course, so June could see it and she could smile on her camera, knowing that hey, you're never going to be able to escape this, and we also have your daughter here too. So Serena, looks down. Basically, the way that they shot this episode is Serena sort of looking down at the camera, and June is sort of looking up in anger, and they basically like another compare and contrast thing going on. So now June is of course going to be back on her quest for revenge, going up against Serena again. Wow, I love the way this episode was shot. I think this episode was directed by the actress that plays June, Elizabeth Moss, and it was a really good way that they directed it. I love the compare and contrast between them two, June and Serena. I had no idea that not Jenny, Esther was going to basically go back to her old ways. I guess you really could see through this episode that it felt like, Jenny, didn't care about her and stuff like that, but Jenny's trying to get used to life in Gilead so she can sort of not get herself killed, I guess. But that all just sort of backfires, and yeah, I did not see that coming out. I personally, my opinion, I don't think Jenny and Esther are dead, but most likely is well, yeah, I don't well. I think maybe Esther might be dead. Jenny, I'm not sure. I don't think so, but Jenny's been through so much. It probably might be better if she did, get out of this show. But I get a feeling they're probably not dead. I get a strong feeling they may not be. But what other? Let's see. What other theories do I have? Yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, now basically Esther, June's gonna be back on her quest for revenge. Yeah, this episode was really good. Like I said, well shot, well directed. Like I said, I love the compare and contrast between June and Serena. I thought that was really good, and this episode was nice. I liked it. Really setting up for the rest of the season. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, all that stuff. I got more content coming for The Handmaid's Tale, and thanks for watching my video.